Right, here's a really good way to learn your scales. In fact, this is one of the ways that I learnt learning my scales. I always try and find ways of playing scales which are not just going up through the... Can't play it with a pen in my hands, but yeah, so I just get really bored of playing that. I always have. I always just didn't bother practicing my scales just because that's the way I was shown, and I thought it was just really dull. And when would you ever play a scale like that anyway? So this is another way that I've discovered that you can learn your scales, and you can apply it to absolutely any scale, whether it's a major or a minor, melodic minor, harmonic minor. You could do it with modes. You could do it with altered, or any sort of jazz scale that you could think of. You can apply this same theory to, and it's one of the things that I found that a lot of jazz musicians do. This is one of like the top things that jazz musicians do to train themselves to access the intervals really quickly. Okay, so it is digital patterns. So digital patterns are just thinking rather than letters. So taking the scale of G, for example, thinking of the letters of the G scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. You think of them as numbers or digits instead. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the 8th note is the octave. We're not going to bother with that. And so the practice that you would do would be to just think of some random numbers, and then to select. But let's give an example. So I'm going to select 3, 5, 2, 1. So 3, 5, 2, 1 in the key of G. This is obviously my G, not necessarily your G. 3, 5, 2, 1 in the key of D. In the key of A. E. And you could just keep going through the, I'm going kind of clockwise through the cycle there. It's probably a bit more jazz to go anti-clockwise. So if I started on C, you could go through the cycle there, going 3, 5, 2, 1 in each key. The cool thing about this then, I was saying about, well, first of all, you can start off with, let's say, 4 numbers, which is quite good. I mean, if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, it's obviously going to be just stupidly easy. So try and mix it up a little bit. 3, 5, 2, 1 is quite a good one. Try and get some big jumps in there. Just select them at random. But you could perhaps go to 5 notes. So you could do, I don't know, 7, 5, 2, 1, 6 in the key of G. Why not? I was playing in the wrong key. So there you go. You've got 5 numbers. It makes it a little bit more difficult. You could just do however many numbers you'd like. But you could also start to change the scale. So if you're thinking, okay, well, if I wanted to, today I really want to practice Dorian modes or Mixolydian modes. Let's talk about Dorian. So from this sequence here, you could just think 1 flat 3, flat 7 would be a Dorian instead. So if we did 3, 5, 2, 1 playing G Dorian, you'd get B flat, D, A, G rather than B natural, D, A, G. So this is normal 3, major third. So you've got difference there of major and minor. This one here, you could do the minor 7 rather than the major 7. Okay, so that's great if you want to practice, different modes, different scales that you're trying to work on. The other thing you can do, and this is really fun, although, well, it's fun. Is it fun? It's incredibly frustrating as well. But it's kind of fun in a sort of sadistic way. You can try and turn things into kind of like tunes into numbers. So you could think, let's go down here. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3, 5. Ugh. 5, 5. There we go. Very, very easy example. When I was learning, that was called Merrily We Roll Along. Now I think the Americans have taken over and it's called Mary Had a Little Lamb. Anyway, so I've just digitalized that melody, and now I can do it in all keys. So and then in F. Etc. etc. You can go around. I won't bore you going through all 12 keys, but there you go. So you can digitalize tunes. Now with something like that, it's probably not very fun. Although friends of mine actually, for some reason, did Pop Goes the Weasel in every key. One of their they got together and had a joint practice session, and don't know why they did that, but it's kind of good practice for the ear, and kind of the logical part of your brain working in the way in which you want it to be. So being able to relate very, very quickly to these intervals. But you could do this with standards as well, and it really helps to memorize what's going on. Or like licks, like if you've got I don't know, if you're on guitar and you're trying to work out a Pat Metheny lick, and it's it sounds really, really cool and you want to use it, then think of it as numbers rather than just a shape. I know shapes work really well on guitar, but try and think of it as interval numbers, and then it helps to sort of intellectualize what is actually happening there rather than just thinking, oh, it's just that shape. Or if you're playing a Charlie Parker phrase on the sax, try and actually work out what intervals he's playing relating to the chords at that specific point. So if he's playing, I don't know, a D7 chord, and he's playing a C and an E and an F sharp, he'd be playing the 7th. The C would be the 7th, the E would be the 2nd, what else would I say, F sharp would be the 3rd. Okay, so it kind of gives you an idea of what sort of intervals these guys were using, and then you can steal that. So there you go, digital patterns, thinking of numbers rather than letters. It's just so much easier, and if you can count to 7 and know all of your 7 intervals, then it's easier than thinking of your letters of whether it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, see what I mean? So just numbers rather than letters, much, much easier. But this is one of the top things I do, to just really relate to intervals, and another way to practice scales without actually running up from the root to the octave and back down again.